I have decided to step up to the challenge, even though I'm not exactly a standard monotheistic believer. First of all, I have to say that I'm really a NonStampCollector's fan and I really enjoy his videos. Even though I am more of a theist than atheist. Actually, I guess that this video is meant both for theists and atheists, because I don't really think that there will be many people sharing my view. The crucial thing about proving that God is only one is a little problem with that amount. So I gather that most people think that that's the simplest thing of the whole thesis, the one thing. People usually think that they know what one means. However, if you study the mythology and the historical context, you realize quickly that people writing the Bible were not mathematicians. That doesn't have to be a problem necessarily, because even people who are not mathematicians nowadays use numbers the way mathematicians do. What we have to realize, though, is that the people writing the Bible were not mathematicians, but numerologists. And numerology deals with numbers in a significantly different way. And the difference really does matter, because when numerologist says that something is one, he means something completely different than when mathematician says that something is one. So the problem essentially, you could say, is semantic, but nevertheless crucial. The easiest way of explaining the difference between how mathematics operate with numbers and how numerology operates with numbers is perhaps by saying that mathematics is quantitative computing, while numerology is qualitative computing. The next important difference is that mathematics compute objects. It's rooted in objectivity, in a notion that different objects are separate from each other. Numerology, on the other hand, operates within the human subjectivity, and it doesn't really work with any kind of severe distinction between two things. It always assumes that everything is connected, that there are fluent scales between different recognizable parts of some personal trait or imaginative archetype or whatever. And it recognizes that whenever you make distinctions, they are just arbitrary generalizations. You're not really separating things from each other, because they are not separate. You're just in some way making it easier for yourself to understand how it all works. It's best explained when you look at the transition from polytheism to monotheism. Essentially, the only thing that really changed was a perspective. The different gods of any polytheistic religion, in their total sum, comprised the whole of human experience. Now, what monotheism does is not, changing the different parts of human experience. No, it just says that there exists a fundamental unity between different polytheistic gods as parts of the whole. It changes the perspective in a sense that it shows us that all of those different gods in a polytheistic religion are in fact one force, one God, one unity. In numerology, proving that count, the number, doesn't make any sense. Because first you choose the number, and then the choice of the number determines your viewpoint. The number is an amount of divisions you make from the whole. But the whole is still the same. Following this logic, you cannot really say that monotheistic religions have only one spiritual force, only one God. They are as polytheistic religions. There is just that unity component. In Christianity, for example, you have countless saints and angels of I don't know how many different ranks, each of those specifically responsible for some part of the whole of human experience. In other words, proving that the God is one objectively, like assuming that God is some entity objectively separated from us, simply doesn't make any sense. Proving that God is one can be done only in a subjective framework. But if you really insist on proving that the oneness of God does make any sense whatsoever, then there are things you can look at that would support the functionality of this, well, it's not actually a division of this viewpoint. For example, we live in one universe with one set of laws of physics. Granted, there may be some other universes, but as it seems they don't really affect us anyhow. In fact, the most interesting thing about the oneness of God is that That is what led to the discovery of modern science. It's not a coincidence that modern science appeared where it appeared, in the Western world. The modern science was invented by Christian scholars because they assumed that there is just one God, a lawmaker, who created logical set of rules which are immutable. They didn't have evidence for that in the beginning, but they have found evidence for that. In scientific terms, a monotheistic religion is a mode of thinking, a hypothesis. It is something that leads you to better understanding of the world. It's quite ironic, though, that Christianity, through its own premises, arrived at conclusions that conflicted some dogmas of the Church. But nevertheless, there is a fundamental aspect of unity to the world, which kind of is a proof that if there was a God, it would be one. If it would be more gods, then there would be at least one fundamental agreement between them about the laws of the universe. But I imagine that many believers don't know any of that. So their claims of one God, objectively speaking, really cannot be substantiated. All I really wanted to demonstrate by this is that the whole thing is not as simple as it may seem. Well, I hope it was at least somewhat useful. That would be all from me.